What's up, YouTube? Today is the second day after the Balance Manifesto was released, and a lot of people have been concerned about how exactly is the meta going to be different and if the Balance Manifesto is actually the full picture. So what I'm going to do in today's video is I'm going to go over this tweet by Bex where he says that they're actually having buffs to over 100 unique items. And if I believe that this tweet or these buffs to the unique items can create a complete change in the meta. Now, I do want to clear up a lot of confusion, it seems like, on Reddit, especially. A lot of people are kind of confused about what they're really mad at. There's a large portion of people on Reddit who are actually they're actually really mad that GGG has nerfed everything to the ground and that this is an Expedition 2.0. But most of the people who actually understand what's going on in the game do not really think that the nerfs are unwarranted. A lot of the nerfs are completely justified, like Brittle, Skelly Mages is probably overtuned, EA Totems is probably a little bit overtuned, Fire Trap is a little overtuned, and Seismic Trap is obviously overtuned, and Nightblade is probably overtuned, it didn't get nerfed. But basically, people aren't upset about the nerfs happening. They're more upset about how the Balance Manifesto doesn't really change things enough for there to be a new meta. Now, this is obviously a small snapshot of what GGG has in store. And this is not just Chris Wilson being super, super happy that the world is falling apart as they wash up on the lakes of Kalandra. There is probably going to be a meta shift by the new league mechanic that's introduced. There's probably going to be a new meta shift from the, I don't know how many new skills they're adding in. If I wanted to be a copium person, I would say 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 new skills, but that's probably not happening. There's probably going to be 4 new skills and maybe 1 link skill and maybe 2 new support gems. So there are multiple ways, and one of the ways that Bex believes that there might be a meta shakeup and why the Balance Manifesto doesn't paint the best picture is the fact that they are actually planning to buff over 100 unique items. Not 50, not 60, not 70, not 80, and not 90, but 100 unique items. Now, you might be wondering, why do they even need to buff any of the uniques? The uniques are all very, very strong. Everyone uses uniques, right? Wrong. Lots of uniques were designed before spell suppression existed, so you'll see that a lot of uniques don't have any spell suppression whatsoever. Jung actually has a very good point. Pog, every unique has suppression on it now. Rumors were true. And then this person, I just wanted to include this. Every unique has +2 radius to cleave. If you combine them all, it gives you enough radius to reach through the screen and hit yourself. Well, that's not very nice, right? But I could potentially see them introducing suppression on a lot of uniques to make it more competitive and more up to date with the power of current rares in PoE. Now, another thing that has happened in the last expansion is Eldritch Implicits are incredibly powerful. In fact, they're so powerful that it's even hard to justify using double influence bases like in the past. And what Eldritch Implicits mean is, like, if you have strike additional enemies for Lightning Strike, it is extremely difficult to ever use a unique to compensate, right? You can't be using uniques when there's gloves with Eldritch Implicits that actually have game-breaking Eldritch Implicits. Like, you have Brittle Ground on boots before, you have Scorched Boots, and there's just so many Eldritch Implicits that are absolutely crazy that makes it a lot harder for uniques to compete. One example I could give is Brass Dome. Brass Dome gives +5 max res, and I think with the Eldritch Implicits now, you can actually get +2 max res, along with getting a bunch of life, percent life, and also spell suppression on top. And also you can get aura effect on the Eater of Worlds Eldritch Implicit. So there's so much power creep right now going on with rares that it's extremely difficult for the run-of-the-mill uniques to compete. And in addition, a lot of people say, what about unique weapons? People in the back in the day used to use Starforge, and Starforge used to be super expensive. Varunashtra used to be insanely expensive. Nowadays, all of the unique weapons are pretty much outdated. I do think the only unique weapon that people actually use is probably Paradoxica. and a lot of people use Paradoxical with Shaco and get the Elemental Pen and attack speed version. And it will be nice to see if GGG can buff some of these unique weapons to have it to make them have a place in some modern day builds. Some people do use White Wind, some people do use Nagamahu's Flame. And unique weapons are pretty cool because they are actually unique and they can have a lot of build enabling potential. Now, can these unique buffs actually cause a meta shift? And the answer is absolutely yes. We have seen this time and time again, new uniques like Crystallized Omniscience that allows a bunch of mediocre builds like Winter Orb that struggle to get a bunch of elemental penetration. So you could see in the past, Crystallized Omniscience, Ashes of the Star, and Mage Blood have all caused new builds to be viable. Mage Blood allows you to fix so many issues on a build that you're able to invest in power elsewhere. And Zizaran actually has a new unique pair of gloves that he says rivals Hateforge in terms of power. So I don't know if people remember the Vol Lightning Strike days with Pathfinder. We might be seeing potentially one of the most powerful builds in PoE's history come out because of Zizaran's new unique. Now, you might be wondering, why are people so wary of this? Because if you go actually look at the Twitter thread, there's a lot of people who still don't believe in what GGG are going to be doing. Now, this is pretty much the story of the boy who cried wolf, and GGG is the boy who's crying that the wolf is coming, or in this case, the 100 new unique buffs are coming. In the past, GGG promised 40 gem buffs, and this was after Heist League, I think. And you know what those 40 gem buffs were? Or 40 gem changes? They were a nerf to every single alternate quality aura in the game. And that was a huge slap in the face. Now, in addition to that, if you look at the development manifesto and what people have seen, is that when GGG actually tries to buff an underperforming skill, you result with +2 radius on cleave, or a 10% damage nerf to a 10% damage buff, or 5% even, to a skill that wouldn't even be played if it had its damage doubled. So you can see why people are kind of skeptical about any of these buffs to uniques. Now, I actually digged into the past, and GGG actually did a huge unique balance in Harvest League. And if you actually look at the Harvest League patch notes, and I actually pulled it up over here, you can see here unique item balance. And there are so many items that are buffed, right? Might and Influence, Nagamahu's Flame, Red Blade Banner, Savior, Sakawell's Flock, Troll Timber Spire, Ungo's Harmony, Wake of Destruction, Voidbringer. And guess what? None of these buffs cause any of these unique items to be used. So you can see here, Void Force now has 30 to 60% increased physical damage, from 50 to 100%. Wait, they actually nerfed some of these uniques because they actually made the two-hand weapon base type better. So maybe they're actually disguising the buff as a nerf. I didn't even know. I included the screenshot and I thought it was actually a buff, but now that I remember, I think it was a hidden nerf. So you can definitely see why people are wary, and here is a response I found on Twitter. We remember the 40 gems buffed fiasco. We remember the arch nemesis is working as intended. We remember the last time you said unique is going to be buffed due to the bases being updated. So you can see here, not a great track record, but I do have hope. So there is very possible for new uniques to shake up the meta. I do think that the buff to uniques is going to be a lot harder to shake up the meta unless the buff to the unique actually creates a potentially new unique. And there is something to keep in mind for 3.19 is that a lot of the Uber bosses don't have their current boss uniques in, and a lot of the boss uniques are designed by the SSF hardcore people who won the race. And there are some pretty good uniques. Sure, there's some that are pretty bad or pretty niche, like the Slam unique made by Ben, but there's also some really, really build enabling ones like the Steel Mage Impossible Escape Jewel that has led to a huge buff in build choice. However, I do think in the end, it is very, very important for new skills to be added. You can buff all of the uniques you want. You can create a bunch of new uniques. The number one way to have a more fun meta is to have a new skill dominate, right? In the past, this has happened. I actually thought they haven't really introduced a new skill in a while, and I'm wrong. not too long ago, I think it was 3.16, they actually introduced Poisonous Concoction, which is pretty good. They've introduced Forbidden Right, which was played with totems. They've introduced Voltaxic Burst, which is actually not really played. They introduced Summon Reaper, which is not really played actually. They've introduced Assassinate, not really played, but they did introduce Spectral Helix, right, in those 20 new skills, and that's played a lot. So new skills, very, very important. I hope that there's lots and lots of new skills. And something to also keep in mind is that the league mechanic has the potential to introduce a lot of player power and potential new builds. I do fear that this last league's presence of recombinators is going to remove a lot of build making potential. I don't think people fully comprehend how big removing recombinators actually are, especially if you're playing, say you're playing like, let's go take a look real fast at PoE Ninja. If you're playing like a Wander build, or you're using a Fizz wand or something like that, or a Fizz bow, a lot of the wands and bows that were triple T1 Fizz will just not really exist anymore. And it is very, very hard to craft Fizz weapons or even like triple Ellie weapons without bows. And I do think that people will be kind of in for a surprise once they realize recombinators are gone. And recombinators do have a trickle down effect where people sell their bricked bases for a lot cheaper. And I do think that the recombinators will probably need a pretty good league mechanic to replace it in order for the player power to be around the same as before. But thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments below if you actually think these 100 new buffed uniques will shake up the meta. I do think that we should wait for the patch notes, and I do hope that 3.19 will have thousands and millions of new builds. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more meters, exalts, and mage bloods than me, and see you next time. Bye.